When I read the statistic, it really hit me hard because you know what? I have a little girl at home. Hello, my beautiful queens. I am back and this is our Queen's Corner. If you're coming in for the first time, I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for following me. I want to thank you for listening because you giving me your time right now, it's so important to me. And the reason why I come up and I start to do this Queen Corner podcast is because there was so much information out there, right? There's like an information overload, but I get so many questions on my Facebook page or just like me having conversations with this beautiful woman around me that it really sparks something inside of me. That it's something that I've gone through, maybe something that you're going through, that right now you maybe are in need of this encouraging words. So I am in the comfort of my office and I usually like to be at home. It just feels so much cozier. It feels so beautiful, surrounded by love and by grace. And even though I feel that here too for a little bit, it's not my comfortable space, but I am here. And I want to urge you to find your corner, like wherever you are in your home or in your apartment or wherever you are, like find a corner that is for you where you could sit down and really start to think of like, what are the things that are going through in my life that maybe I need to step into this queen mentality that we talk about, and how can I make those little tweaks, little changes, to make those changes in life, to make those changes in your relationship so you could actually start to improve the quality of your relationship. So anyway, let's get started. Today, I really want to talk about something that's very dear and close to my heart. I know that I've had so many conversations with women, and if you're listening to this, maybe this is something that you could relate. You could relate to what I'm going to talk about. And it has a lot to do, today's topic has a lot to do with body image. And, you know, we are surrounded by all this information, all this overload, all this stuff just attacking us, images of what people think that we should look like, of what social media says we should look like. And all of a sudden, we forget who we really are on the inside. So one of the questions that I've had this whole week with women that I've talked to and a couple of my queens is, you know, how do you see yourself? And when we had that question, it was like, oh my gosh, like it's sometimes we're really harsh on each other. And I don't know how you see yourself. Maybe it's a good question for you to ask yourself right now. Like if you had to look in the mirror right now, like how do you see yourself? And I remember doing this exercise a couple of years back when one of my mentors told me, like, look, sit down on the floor, have a mirror. And I have this big, beautiful mirror in my bedroom. And I sat down on my yoga mat and I sat there and I looked at myself in the mirror and I got past at looking at my insecurities, because that's the first thing that comes up, you know, like my wrinkles and my, you know, my gray hair, if some are coming in, or just like my tummy that it's overlapping, like my hips or whatever it was. Like I looked at all those faults. And when I really got a hold of like, what do I see? How do I see myself? I started to cry. I started to let go, and I really started to look past all those things that my mind thinks are imperfections. And who creates that for us, right? And that's kind of the conversation that I've had this whole week with women. It's like, who creates those thoughts? Who creates those ideas that our body image is imperfect? Now, 90% of the people in this world, and especially the United States, 90% of the people have some sort of eating disorders, and they're mostly women. And when I read the statistic, it really hit me hard because you know what? I have a little girl at home. And if you have a girl, a teenager, a young woman in your household, like you know how difficult it is nowadays to really try to build that confidence in them. Like, how do we tell them they're beautiful? How do we tell them they're absolutely just perfect the way that they are, that there's nothing that they need to change, when the world, social media, is telling them something else? Now, when that happened for me, I really had to, sit with myself and say, like, well, whatever it is that I am saying to myself, it's what's going to overspill into my daughter, into my son, but mostly my daughter, because how women are, like, we're so harsh on each other sometimes. And for statistics, like 90% of women have some sort of eating disorder. And if you ask the woman next to you, like, if you turn around and you say, or if you're listening to this, like, ask yourself, like, how do you see yourself? And maybe you've had some sort of like insecurity when you look at your body. So then maybe you stop eating, you thinking like that's the right thing. And I know that I've been caught in that roller coaster. And the reason why we don't see ourselves as confident, as, we're not comfortable and we're not content to where we are in our body, is because we are always comparing ourselves to everyone else. And this comparison game is one, like, we want to be better than the other person. And better is, sometimes it's good when it brings motivation, but when we don't know how to use our motivation, it's destructive. It destructs our soul, it destructs our heart. So as I'm having these conversations with women, as I'm thinking about my little girl, I'm thinking like, hey, why not? Why don't we have that positive body image ourselves? Like, what changes, right? Like, why does it go south so quickly? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I wish I knew, because then it would make life so much easier. But listen, one of the things that I learned, and I remember going to an S Factor retreat, and that's another beautiful mentor in my life. Her name is Sheila Kelly, and she teaches about body acceptance. And I remember one time, maybe like 5 years ago, being in a seminar, and she was talking about 3 different types of bodies. And I never really heard this part, and back then. Now I'm like a little bit more educated, and I bring so much into my life that I've been reading about it. But if you haven't heard about this, it was so like enlightening for me. She talked about 3 different body types that women have, right? She talked about one, and I wrote it down because I have to look at it because I don't want to mess it up. Number 1, she talked about the ectomorph. And when she said that, I had no idea what it was. I was just taking all the notes that I could take because I wanted to learn. I was in a place where it's like, okay, I don't love myself fully. I don't love where I am right now fully. How do I make these little shifts? How do I step into that queen mentality that I could say, like, I need to do this different? So going back 5 years ago when she was talking about the ectomorphs, and she said they are long and they're lean. They were made, our bodies were made, like if you think back on our ancestors, right? Like how our bodies then were long and lean because we needed to maybe reach up to stuff, or maybe we needed to run the distance to get to a certain village or back and forth. And that's how the bodies kind of shaped and got created. Then she talked about the mesomorph, and those are the ones that are solid, they're strong, more like the athletic type. And then she talked about the last one, which was an endomorph. Endomorph it's more delicate in the upper body and it's heavier set on the bottom. So it has, more of a leg, and it's built for more resistance of just walking lengths, picking up a lot of things and carrying a lot of things. And the minute that she went through those body types, I literally, I started to cry. I remember just sitting there and listening to that, and something about it that is sunk in so deep in my heart that I really got it. It was like, not every woman body is made the same way. And my body was made a different way because back then our ancestors had that body type to help, communities and help households. And then I was okay with it. For some reason, I don't know what it was. I was okay with it. And the following exercise was one of, more of acceptance, of knowing your own body. And when I got to that place, I'm telling you, I was crying like a baby. And I don't know if you're listening to this right now and you feel like, maybe in the past you have not accepted your body because you haven't even seen it maybe the way that you needed to see it. And I want to pray over you, and I want to ask you to take a look at yourself one more time through a different perspective, through different eyes. And when you do that, when you learn to accept that part of you, it changes everything. Now, thinking of all the women that I talk to, all these questions that come through for me and through me is, how do I do that, Vivian? How do we start to really accept ourselves? And I would say one of the first things that once we accept, instead of body shaming, how do we come back to this body image, right? Like, who created you? For me, I believe in God. And when I come back and I ask those questions, it's like, well, God created me in his own image and he didn't make a mistake. Like, I am taller than most because he wanted me that way. I have bigger hips and a bigger butt for some reason. I love it. Like, I am learning to accept that part of me. And every body, the body is so different for everyone. We're so unique that we got to be okay with that. So the first thing I believe is awareness. Awareness and knowing like where you are at this moment in your life. Awareness and knowing like, hey, do I love myself? Maybe there's parts of my body that I want to change, but I need to accept them because they're with me right now. And also, like, if you think about this and if you're listening to this, like, when you wake up, your body does so much for you already. And sometimes we don't even take the time to say thank you. I know for me, my body has gone through a whole lot of stuff. And every time I come back and I think about it, I'm like, I'm so thankful. And I come back to that place of grace and gratitude. So awareness, acceptance, learning to accept yourself where you are and who you are at the moment. Not to say like there is a next thing for you, that there's a evolution of things, but it happens in our own timing. When we learn to accept where we are, when we learn to accept who we are fully, then God will give you the next step to continue to wherever that next step is. And then the last thing I would say, my last A, I would say just the sense of feeling alive. Because when we start to feel alive on the body that we have right now, then we could say like, I feel alive right now. How do I bring that onto the world? How do I bring that into my little girl? How do I bring that into my husband, into my relationship? And that's something that once we learn to accept, once we learn to have the awareness and the aliveness in our own body, then everything starts to change. And that's kind of the questions that we've had this whole week with women. It's like, how do we have that mind shift? And I want you to know that the world right now is not really helping us. There is so much out there, so many, miscommunication, so much stuff on social media that it doesn't really align to who we are supposed to be. And if you're listening to this, I want you to know that right now you're in a place where you could have growth, but have it with a sense of alignment to who you are and who does God want you to be. I hope all of this makes sense, and I hope that it resonates in your heart, and I pray that it does, because I know that it did for me. And when I started to learn and to accept more about myself, then the rest kind of came into place. It's like this perfect puzzle that came together. And if you want more content of this, about the body, about self-image, about our sexuality, comment below. Let me know how this resonates with you, and let me know how you see yourself right now. And if there's a struggle, if there's a challenge that right now that you're facing, maybe share with us, because we all face them at some time and point in our life. that's really what I have in my heart. That's really what it's going through for me this week. And I am really happy that I was able to come here and sit in this little corner and share my heart and share my stories. And I just want you to remember that you were created and God wants you to be that queen. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for listening.